Everybody knows who Alexander the Great was. But who was Alexander the Kid? Well, his father was Philip, the king of Macedon. Second of his name, the hard-drinking, breaker of oaths, slayer of truths, scourge of honor, and conqueror of spread legs. Now, this description is written by the Greeks, who hated Philip for repeatedly rolling over them with his army. I will do justice to Philip in this video, as you'll see he wasn't that bad. But for now, getting back to our story, he also had multiple wives, as he didn't marry for love, but for alliances. Later, one of his wives was involved in a successful plan to kill Philip. I won't name this wife, as Olympias, Alexander's mother, might take offense. In addition to this, she claimed that Alexander's true father was not Philip. Philip also suspected that he might not be the father, a claim that Alexander himself seemed to embrace. Although Philip, the king of Macedon, united all of Greece and planned to conquer Persia, it still wasn't enough. So, who was this father greater than a king? Well, it was a divine upgrade. They believed Zeus himself stepped in to take that role. Now, were these people crazy? Let's see how they came to this conclusion. In 357 BC, Alexander was the unborn, as Philip just married Olympias. The legend says that in the night before their marriage was fulfilled, Olympias had a dream that her womb was struck by a thunderbolt. For you and me, this might be a nightmare. But for Olympias, this was a good omen, suggesting that Zeus himself planted a seed. Philip also had a dream that he was sealing his wife's womb with a seal showing the figure of a lion. The lion represents royalty and authority, so the dream could be seen as an omen that the child to be born, Alexander, would be a powerful and dominant figure, a king like a lion among men. On another occasion, Olympias managed to freak Philip out. Now, keep in mind that this was a man of war, used to see severed limbs and other atrocities of close combat, so scaring him wasn't an easy task. How did it happen? According to Plutarch, a serpent was found lying next to Olympias. Philip wanted to sleep with his wife and discovered this creature beside her bed. This frightened him so much that he stopped sleeping with her, fearing she might cast an evil spell on him or that a higher being was actually lying with her, given that Zeus himself was sometimes depicted as a serpent. This incident led Philip to send someone to the Oracle of Apollo to find out the truth. The Oracle of Apollo, located at Delphi, was one of the most revered places in the ancient world, believed to have the power to predict the future. People from all over Greece came seeking answers and guidance from the god Apollo through the oracle. When Philip's messenger asked, "Will this child be the son of a mortal or of a higher being?" he didn't get a straightforward answer. Instead, he was told that Philip should make sacrifices to Zeus and praise him above all other gods. The oracle also gave a warning that Philip would lose the sight in the eye he used to peek into Olympia's bedroom, seeing her with a serpent. Apparently, if you catch Zeus sleeping with your wife, it's your fault and you will suffer. This prophecy was fulfilled when Philip was blinded in a later battle. It's important to know that all the sources we have are from later times. These sources are based on the notes of people who lived during that time, but some details might have been added later. This means that the prophecy about Philip losing his eye could have been created after the event as a way to explain what happened, rather than predicting it. The story's deeper meaning is not the literal truth, but the idea that Philip and Olympias had a difficult relationship and the high expectations placed on Alexander from the beginning. These were all events that happened before Alexander was born. In 356 BC, according to Plutarch, just after Philip had taken Potidea, he received 3 messages at the same time. Parmenio had defeated the Illyrians in a great battle, his racehorse had won at the Olympic Games, and Alexander was born. Philip took this as a good omen, as the birth of his son was marked by 3 successes, suggesting that his son would be invincible. After his birth, Alexander quickly demonstrated great potential, curiosity, and intelligence. He was captivated by the story of Achilles in the Iliad, which had a great influence on him. He admired Achilles so much that he tried to emulate the deeds of his hero throughout his life. Just as Achilles had Patroclus as his close friend and companion, Alexander found his own in Hephaestion, who would become his lifelong friend and confidant. Just as Achilles had the god as a parent, Alexander too claimed Zeus as his father. Achilles was fearless, and so was Alexander. Later, Alexander even carried a copy of the Iliad with him on his expeditions, sleeping with it under his pillow. As a child, Philip surrounded Alexander with older teenagers, which helped him mature more quickly. This was part of grooming him for the throne, as these teenagers would later become his generals and would already be used to following his orders. Alexander was also sent to a prestigious Macedonian school specifically designed for the children of the nobility. When he was around 13 years old, an event highlighted his abilities, leading Philip to believe that his son needed to be taught by someone more knowledgeable than the regular teachers at the school. This event was linked to a horse. One day, a man named Philonicus brought a horse to Philip, offering to sell it for 13 talents. When Philip's men took the horse to the field, they found it to be very vicious and unpredictable. The horse reared up whenever they tried to mount it. Plutarch tells us that the horse didn't even endure the voice of Philip's attendants. After a while, they gave up and began leading the horse away, deeming it useless and wild. Alexander, who was standing by, exclaimed, "What an excellent horse they're losing, just because they lack the experience and courage to manage him." At first, Philip didn't notice what he said, but after Alexander repeated it several times and probably started to become annoying, Philip asked, "Do you really think you know better? These men have experience. You don't." Alexander confidently replied that he could manage the horse better than the others. Philip then asked him, "And yet, if you fail, what will you forfeit for your rashness?" Alexander boldly answered that he would pay the full price of the horse. Naturally, everybody started to laugh at this, not believing that a child would be able to manage that horse, or probably because he would also not be able to pay the price of that horse alone. To put the value of the horse in perspective, here is a rough calculation to convert it into modern currency. Note that this is an estimate and should be taken with a grain of salt. The horse was valued at 13 talents. 1 talent is roughly equivalent to 26 kilograms or 57 pounds of silver. While the weight of a talent can vary, we'll use this amount for our calculation. 26 kilograms are 26,000 grams. If the price of silver is $0.75 per gram, multiplying 26,000 grams by $0.75 gives a value of $19,500 for 1 talent. Therefore, the horse, worth 13 talents, would be valued at approximately $253,500 in today's money. That would have been quite a sum for a 13-year-old to pay, as that was his own weight in silver 7.5 times, but Philip decided to let Alexander try and tame the horse anyway, most likely seeking to teach him a lesson. However, Alexander realized that the horse was frightened by the movement of his own shadow, so he rushed to the horse, turning it towards the sun. He first let the horse get used to him and his touch. As the horse grew calmer, Alexander leaped onto his back. At this point, everyone watched in silence, anxious. But once Alexander was securely mounted, he controlled the horse without striking or spurring it, but using his commanding voice. Alexander even rode the horse at full speed. At full speed! Oh, there you go. And when he returned victorious, the crowd erupted in applause and acclamation. Philip, shedding tears, kissed him and said, "Oh my son, look for a kingdom equal to and worthy of yourself, for Macedonia is too small for you." And it seems Philip was right. As a spoiler, even Macedonia, combined with all of Persia, would eventually prove too small for Alexander. After conquering it all and marching for 10 years straight, he still wanted to press on and move forward. After this event, Philip decided to raise Alexander's education difficulty level to expert and sent for the most skilled philosopher of the time, Aristotle, to teach his son. There was just a small problem. Not long before, he had actually demolished Aristotle's native city, Stagira. We can imagine Aristotle might not have been too keen on teaching Philip's son. So, likely in order to gain his cooperation, Philip repopulated the city and restored all the citizens who were in exile or slavery to their previous positions. You might think this was quite an expensive move, but Aristotle was no ordinary teacher. He was the best the world could offer at that time. To understand in today's terms, he was like 3 top universities combined. He taught Alexander's politics, ethics, history, medicine, astronomy, poetry, botany, music, zoology, rhetoric, and he greatly enhanced Alexander's curiosity. Alexander valued Aristotle's teachings so much that when Aristotle later published them, Alexander was upset. He felt that the secrets of oratory should stay exclusive because this special knowledge gave him an advantage. Alexander even said he'd rather surpass others in wisdom than in authority. Aristotle reassured him, explaining that although the book was public, it was written in a way that only people with prior understanding could fully grasp. So, the deeper knowledge remained protected and only accessible to those who could truly understand it. For a time, Alexander loved and cherished Aristotle as much as he would his own father, often saying that while one gave him life, the other taught him how to live life. However, over time, Alexander grew suspicious of Aristotle, yet not to the extent of harming him. This mistrust led to a cooling of their relationship, and the warmth and closeness they once shared noticeably diminished. Despite this, Alexander's intense passion for learning, once ignited by Aristotle, continued to flourish. And that's the story of Alexander the Kid up to his teenage years, from the legend surrounding his birth to showing early signs of brilliance. But the real journey had only just begun. Soon he'd take the crown, command armies, level down cities, enslave populations, prove his military genius, believe he was God himself, form the biggest empire the world has seen up to that point, and change the course of history. More videos are in the works right now, and if you enjoyed this one, subscribe and press the bell button to get notified when the next video is released.